and others not. And this has been very interesting because in the beginning, nothing preyed on anything else. Everything just absorbed its energy from the sun. But something happened, which people call the hack. Something happened, and they started eating one another and killing one another. And so the development was that the humans started it. They couldn't resist temptation. And then it just spiraled out of control. The interesting thing is that we sort of are searching as to where, different cultures came from. Well, they're all written actually in the zodiacs. The star systems are in the zodiac, like Scorpio and Capricorn and things. Those are the star systems where beings, all sorts of beings, were seeded from. And so it's really very clear. And there are still some zodiacs which are still to be discovered, and there's a really big one under the Sphinx. I think that has been discovered. There's one at the Temple of Karnak in Dendera. They're all over the place, and it's telling human beings where everything originated. But the thing is, the experiment didn't turn out as it should, so things will have to change again. And so, this is, I think, why you are here again, because at this time, there is an awareness, an ascension taking place. It may not seem like it may seem very chaotic, it may seem as if, everything's going to pot as such, but that's not quite the truth. It's just that there is an ugly side to ascension, where everything is in turmoil. It's like birth, it's painful. But eventually, within a few years, we will come out of that, and many human beings will start to know their place in the universe and know the peace of mind rather than fear. And I think this is why the powers that be is starting to say, there's things on Mars we found, and now we've got these signals, and then there's something else. And that can make a lot of people very fearful. But for people like you, it would make them very happy, because you understand. Even if you don't realize you understand, you do. Now, so at some time, I actually am not sure that you will incarnate again on this earth because of the ascension. It depends on how long that takes for it to be completely good. You may come back one more time, but I think you've done enough here, and I think that you need actually to move on and assimilate everything that you've learned. Now, I've told you what languages that you learned in your past: English, Indian, Dutch, Greek, and I think that you had to learn to speak Native American languages as well. And all these languages, there will be things, you may have learned Spanish from some people that you were in contact with. And so I think there's been a lot of languages in your life and in your past lives. And I think that maybe sometimes you feel that you can understand certain things. I think Italian is another. It's easier to go through the languages that I think that you knew. And I feel, as with being an adventurer, you also had to understand some Chinese, some Mandarin. So I think there's a smattering of an awful lot of things within you. You will stop incarnating on this earth when the Earth has gone through its change. As I said, there may be one more life after this, but it will be an important one. And so I don't think you should worry yourself, because you're here not as actually a doer, but you will help humanity progress, because you will do it ideologically by talking to people and telling them what you feel intuitively about so many things. And I feel that you are a person who has been given the gift of communication so that you can do this. As I said, you used to write. You did do that. You were somebody who helped and did many, many things to be an aid to certain people. And you would note down exactly what was happening at the time when you lived, even when you were into sports in Greece. And so now you may feel that maybe you don't want to write, but maybe you do want to speak. And I think that is all important at this time. People need to know what is actually happening. And I think that deep within you, you can feel this energetic change. You ask me, is the Earth undergoing an energetic density change? Yes, it is. But to a lot of people who are so actually bowed down by fear and thinking about the material world, they're not quite sure. But this is why there are so many things happening. This is the ugly side of ascension, that's what I'm saying. And so it is really interesting, because somebody like you can feel this. You know it, but you've still asked me the question. And the changes are not quite as subtle as most people would think. They're there. They're staring you in the face. But people are just too blind to things that are obvious. So yes, this Earth is undergoing this energetic density change, because that was always destined. And as things are happening within the solar system and within the universe, this was always predestined. Because of human beings sort of turning out the way they have, it seems to have now caused the change to sort of speed up a little bit, because otherwise everything could be destroyed totally. And that's not what was always planned. Though it's been an interesting experiment, and one which hasn't truly worked properly, and that's why there's been intergalactic visitors. And, some of these visitors have just sort of come through time, what we call space and time, because they don't really need the ships to travel, but they do need the ships, the spaceships, to actually exist on, because they can't always exist on this planet in this atmosphere, because it's a very heavy density. And so that is why people are seeing the strangest things. And this is why a lot of the beings that they see are tall and thin, and because in their own homes, planet homes, the density isn't at all like this at all. And some of these are actually plasma people who've come through other dimensions. Now, you asked me, was Jupiter a red star in the not too distant past? Yes, it was, because Jupiter was really a sun. And so was Saturn. There were 3 suns. This was a triple sun system. There were more planets. And these planets, there was some sort of catastrophe. Well, I know what sort of catastrophe there was. There was a huge collision. And this also caused the Mariner Valley on Mars. It caused us to have the asteroid belt because the planet was smashed. It changed the position of all the planets. Mars and Venus were actually thriving planets. They were rock planets and thriving. They had people, beings on them, all sorts of plant life and everything. But this catastrophe threw everything out and changed the orbits of everything. Mars went beyond, further away from this, what we call Sol, the sun, Ra, if you like, and Jupiter and Saturn were flung further out, and there are 2 more planets which have not been discovered yet, but will be, which are way beyond. But this was a triple sun system, and it was quite a perfect system. But with the great catastrophe, as the people on Mars called it, they had to vacate Mars, and they came to live on Earth, went to live on Venus, but Venus, actually the atmosphere became poisoned. The rotation of Mercury, it flung it closer to the sun. The gravitational waves pulled everything everywhere. And so Mercury stopped spinning, and that became uninhabitable. So there was a lot of things. I mean, Pluto is definitely a planet, and there are 2 more beyond that, but they're bigger than Pluto. But why we can't see them, or why we can't sense them because of the gravitational pull, I don't know. I feel that they probably do know, but they're not saying anything. So, yes, Jupiter was a red star. It was a star which was undergoing massive change. And then this catastrophe, there was a collision with Jupiter and another planet which is flung way out. And this caused real havoc. But Jupiter was actually in its death throes as a star. And what we see today is the gaseous remains of that star. So it was interesting, and it wouldn't surprise me if you didn't have a memory of this, to be honest. And then you asked what happened to the Greek gods. Well, I think you may have a good idea about that as well, Eddy, because those Greek gods, the same as some of the Egyptian deities, were star beings from other galaxies, from other dimensions, from other universes. They came to impart knowledge, which they did, but they were, because they could do unusual things, people feared them and were in awe of them. And they had great power, because what they could do then, when they talk about being able to hold a thunderbolt and things like that, it's actually, it could be explained scientifically now. And they were superhuman beings who had come to this planet, because even by that time, things were going wrong, and they were trying to sort of show the way. They came to impart knowledge, as did the very early Egyptians. But again, sometimes you see power corrupted. And, sometimes the power was too much. But you're asking what happened to them. Some of them went back to their homes because they felt they couldn't do any more, and they'd done what they should, and they had to leave things to unfold. Some were power hungry, and they were taken quite suddenly, and they were put in another system where they had to learn